Hello, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited about this series of videos where over the next 9 videos, I am going to chat with a member of our goal setting community about their Enneagram type and how it relates to their goals. So I'm gonna give a quick intro to what is the Enneagram and what does it mean? What am I gonna talk about in these videos? I'm gonna plop this intro in front of each of the videos in case you only click on the one that is your type. But if you are watching more than one of these Enneagram videos, click the timestamp in the description to jump to the chat part of the video. So let's start with what is the Enneagram. The Enneagram is a personality test that breaks people up into 9 distinct personality types. And just like other personality tests, each of us have a little bit of all 9 types in us somehow. But the Enneagram pulls forward which one is your core desire, which one is dominant over the rest, your core desires, your core fears, what really gets you going. And again, just like every other personality test, there is so much information out there, and everything you read, every book, every article is going to give you different information about the different types. And so there might be some things I share that you completely relate to and some things I don't relate to. And then there might be some things in the other type videos that you relate to as well. I also want to make sure you know there is a lot of information related to the Enneagram that we're not going to get into in these videos. There are subtypes, there are wings. Wings just mean you have a secondary Enneagram that is one of the 2 types next to yours. You do actually lean to both of them, but you usually have a stronger one. So if you are very interested in how this can impact your goals, I would encourage you to watch not just your type, but also the 2 next to your type that could be your wings. But we, again, are not going to go into that, and I'm not chatting with each individual about their wing type. I also want to remind you, I'm not an expert. This is not my area of expertise. I did do a lot of research and preparation for these videos, and most of the information that I am sharing is coming from a couple of places. So the first one is this book that I read. It's called, the lighting is not totally working. It's called The Honest Enneagram by Sarah Jane Case, who I also love following on Instagram. I read about all of the types in this book and used a lot of it in my conversations with everybody, as well as this one, which is Take Care of Your Type by Christina Wilcox. So a lot of what I reference can be found in these books if you're looking for more information. I also follow a lot of great Instagram accounts that share a lot of both fun and helpful things related to the Enneagram. And so over the course of the videos, I will pop up some fun things and you'll see the Instagram handle captioned at the bottom, and I will leave the Instagram accounts linked down below as well. Those are sort of the ongoing places that I get my Enneagram information and just learn a little bit more about myself. So the last thing I want to let you know is as we go through each of the chats, I'm going to be talking about that type as a whole, some of the strengths of that type and how it relates to goals, and then some of the struggles that that type will have and how to overcome that to help you achieve your goals. One of the biggest takeaways in all the research I did for these videos and as it relates to the Enneagram is we're not trying to change ourselves. We're trying to learn how we operate and what drives us and how to utilize that to achieve our goals. And that one of the main reasons why we do struggle to achieve our goals is that we try to do it like everybody else, right? Maybe you watch videos of people on YouTube or follow them on Instagram and you try to achieve your goals in the exact same way that they are, but you're a totally different personality type than them. And there is a quote from one of the books that I don't want to mess up. It says, "One of the biggest mistakes I see my clients make is that they try to get the results they want using the tactics of someone else." So at the end of the day, I hope that these videos help you learn a little bit more about yourself and some tactics that can help you achieve your goals based on your Enneagram personality type. Hello, I am so excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for being here. I want to kick it off and have you go ahead and introduce yourself. So if you will share where you live, what you do for work, and what you do for fun.
Okay, so my name is Sami Allen and I live in Utah. I am a English teacher. I teach junior high English, so 8th and 9th graders. And for fun, I like to spend time with my family. I have a husband and a 1-year-old daughter. And other than that, I like to read, write, and paint, and of course, plan. So
yes, of course, plan. No surprise also you're an English teacher who likes to read and write.
Right. Yeah.
In your free time. Mm-hmm. I love that. All right. If you are comfortable sharing, I would love to hear some of your top goals for 2022.
Yeah. So some of my top goals are to prioritize myself with becoming a teacher within the last year and having a new daughter. She's our first. And so just being in that new motherhood role, prioritizing myself has been a huge thing. Same with like just having better with like my wellness and taking care of myself that way, and really just reconnecting with my husband. So a lot of like personal but relationship type goals.
Okay. I love that. Doesn't surprise me at all. You'll definitely hear that's going to be a common theme today, is talking about relationships and type 2s and their desire for relationships to be very important to them. So before we jump in, I want you to comment below if you are also a type 2 and you're watching this video. Let's kick it off with just a fun slide here that is type 2s at an amusement park, or Enneagram types at an amusement park. And so for the type 2, it says the one with the snacks. Do you feel like you can relate?
Yes, I can.
Type 2 is always wanting to make sure everybody is fed, right?
Right. Yep.
I love it. So as we go through things today, there might be some things that we talk about that you're like, I can't relate to that at all. And that's totally normal, because we all have all the types inside of us, and just some of them are more dominant than others. And so if, there might be something that you're like, that's me 100%. And then for you and for others watching, if there's something we talk about that you're like, I don't relate to that at all, that totally happens. So my first question here is if you remember how you discovered the Enneagram and how you determined your type.
So it was actually once the Enneagram kind of like came to Instagram, and I was scrolling through, I'm like, what is all of this stuff? And I would just read through it. I'm like, the 2s and the 3s, like I can resonate with that. But I never really like thought about it. And I'm like, one day I'm like, hey, what is this? Because everyone is talking about it. So I Googled it. I'm like, oh, it's a personality like type test. And so I was like, I have to know, because I'm all about that kind of stuff. And so I took a test, and I honestly thought I was going to be a 3, either that 3 or a 1, but I came out as a 2. And the more I read about the 2 and kind of reflect, I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely a 2.
I love that. And I've said this in some of the other videos too, is that yes, we can take tests and the test can tell us some things, but it is learning about them and really figuring out which one you resonate with, for sure.
Yeah.
So a couple more fun little pop-ups. There's actually 3 of these, but these are little doodles of things that the Enneagram types love. So the first one here for the type 2 says handwritten notes.
Yes.
I feel like that also is like a planner girl thing that we like writing handwritten anything, but I definitely get, I love like handwritten birthday cards too.
Right. No. And I'm definitely that way. I always do handwritten birthday cards. And when my husband and I were dating, I would always write him notes and like go stick them on his car or something like that. And he's like, you're the only girl that I know that's ever done that. And I'm like, I've always done it. So
you're going to get used to it.
Yep.
This is me.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. The next one here says hugs. Yeah. I feel like that's a very type 2 thing.
Yes.
And then the last one here is dinner dates with friends.
Yes. Most definitely.
Awesome. Well, I want to jump into the kind of overview of the type 2. So we have a slide here. The type 2 is known as the helper, with the basic desire being to be worthy, there should be a Y there, of love, to be wanted, to be considered irreplaceable, with basic fears being unlovable, replaceable, it's kind of just the opposite, and undesirable. Do you feel like you relate to that?
Oh, yeah, I do.
And then ultimate motivators to love and feel love. Love is also a very common word that comes up a lot with the 2, love, relationships, to show affection and feeling towards others, and then to feel needed in return.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to start with talking about some of the strengths of the type 2 and how it relates to goals. This is a quote from one of the Enneagram books that I read, which is, it's not honest to pretend we don't have flaws, but it's also not honest to pretend we don't have strengths. And we all typically go to the negative first. We're good at that. So we're going to start with the positives first.
Okay.
And I will tell you, it was kind of tough to come up with strengths of the 2 that can be related to personal goals, because a lot of what the type 2 is all about is other people and relationships and being there for other people. And so when I'm like reading and I'm trying to pick out the 3 strengths that can be related to you and your goals, not gonna lie, it was very tough.
Yeah.
You probably feel when you're working on your goals.
Yeah. I use the power sheets. And so whenever we do that prep work, I always struggle, and it takes a long time to do it, just because it's always asking like, what do I want? And I'm always thinking of how can I help everyone else around me? And so, it's
my gosh. So leading into that, the first strength I have on here is prioritizes relationships. I couldn't not have this as a strength. That can be a positive with goals too. Just because you are prioritizing your relationships with other people doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be successful at your own goals. And I'm sure that, like you already said it, that a lot of your goals do revolve around relationships.
Yes. Yep, they do.
But I also feel like, and this is one of the things I wanted to bring up, that prioritizing relationships is what like gives you energy and makes you excited. And that probably helps with your like goal setting process.
Yeah, no, it does for sure.
I love that. Strength number 2 is always offering to help others and always being the one to offer help, which I think can definitely be a strength when it comes to working on your goals, is being able to be the one that can be there for others and just leaning into that when it makes sense for you.
Right. Yeah. I can definitely see it as a strength. But I feel like with being a 2, there's kind of that fine line of always offering for help and people pleasing and wanting to just help for the sake of helping.
Right. So. And that probably, the way that you can probably kind of maybe think about it to help, trying not to use the word help, but like to balance it with your goals is making sure that you set your goals at the beginning, whether it's the year, the month, the quarter, and those are your priorities. And so then if somebody asks for help and it doesn't line up with whatever it is that you're working on, getting better about saying no.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a struggle though, is like being able to say no.
Yep.
The other saying no tip that I always like to give is start small. It's easier to say no to something small and then work your way up to saying no to bigger things. The other one is saying, let me get back to you. It's harder to say no right there in the moment, but then to like take a minute, to reflect, see if it fits, and then you can say no later.
Yes. No, I definitely agree with that.
The last one I have here is strength for the type 2s is being incredibly thoughtful and aware of other people's emotions.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's true for you?
Very true.
I feel like the way this relates to goals, at least in my opinion, is you're going to consider other people when you are setting your goals, and you're not just going to like steamroll over other people. I literally just had a conversation with type 3, and we will do the opposite. We will just like, we're going to set goals and we're going to go after those no matter what. And you are going to consider other people in that. And that is, that's I think a really great quality. So let's move into some of the struggles, which we already talked about a little bit, but some of the struggles and some thoughts on how to overcome them. I want to start with a quote that is, the core goal of using the Enneagram is to grow into your best, most authentic self. So we're not trying to change you. We're not trying to make these struggles go away. We're trying to work with them and learn how we can best overcome them and not, we're not getting rid of them. That's for sure.
Right.
The first one is almost directly related to what you said your number 1 goal is for the year, which is that type 2s typically don't prioritize themselves.
Yeah, I can relate.
Hence why it's a goal for you, right? Anything that you have found that has worked for you this year in terms of making that a goal that you're prioritizing?
I think just really scheduling in that me time. I have found that when I sit down with my planner, and I use both a weekly and a daily, but when I sit down with my daily, I will schedule that me time. And then it's just communicating with my husband saying, hey, I need like an hour to do this and to recharge. And so I feel like that's been the most helpful, is just making sure that you schedule it as like an appointment so you actually do it.
Yep. And then asking the other people in your life to help support you with that commitment. I think going back to the kind of the tip I said about saying no is starting small here as well. Like while you might want, a whole weekend to yourself to be able to prioritize your needs like that, with a little one and a spouse, like that's going to be tough. So let's start small with what you can prioritize for yourself on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to really remember here is, and I know that this quote gets spread all around the universe all the time, but that you can't pour from an empty cup, and that you have got to take care of yourself and in order to take care of others well. And so as a type 2, just reminding yourself of that, like that by taking care of you, you are going to be a better mom, a better wife, a better teacher. And it can be hard, but it's like, as much as you need to remind yourself of that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I have that quote actually like up in my classroom and in my office just because I feel like that is the quote of the twos is
Yes.
you can't do everything you want to do until you take care of yourself.
Yes, right.
So,
You can't take care of others until you take care of you.
right.
That is, I think that is the summary of the reminder, I guess, that the type twos probably need to hear.
Yeah.
Somewhat similar to that, but the next struggle I have here is difficulty asking for help, right? So we talked about how you're always offering to help, but then in turn, type twos can struggle at asking for help in return, like from when they're offering help. And so I think that same thing here is starting small, right? Asking for help in small ways. And then it gets easier to be able to ask for help in big ways.
Yeah.
Is this something that you feel like you are still working on, or something that you have kind of figured out a little bit? I'm sure with like when you had a newborn, it was probably like one of the things that you needed to do, but struggled with.
Right. No, yeah. I feel like I've come a long way, but I have always struggled asking for help. And I think it kind of comes from like a sense of pride. I know like with the twos, their sense of pride is they want to be able to help everyone without needing that help themselves because they are the helper. And so, yeah, when I had my little girl, asking for help was super hard. I thought I could be super mom and do everything. But once I kind of humbled myself and my husband started to help, and I'd ask my mom for help, and I just felt like in a better place. But yeah, asking for help is really hard.
Absolutely. I think another reminder here, this is just kind of, there's a lot of, I think, mindsets and mental things related to what we're talking about here, is that people want to help, right? They want to help you. They want, especially people that love you, like your husband and your mom, right? They want to help you and be there for you. And so, but they're not twos. So while you can usually, you're going to be aware and you're going to know what people need without them having to ask.
Right.
Your loved ones probably don't. They probably don't know what you need. And so you've got to be comfortable just asking and being specific about what do you need.
Yeah.
Or this is what I need.
Yeah. Kind of going along with that, I've recognized like with being a two and seeing other twos that we don't want to ask for help directly, but we'll kind of hint at things and hope that people will kind of have the same instincts as we do. I'm like, oh, she needs help. But
they typically don't. My guess
they
is
don't.
They're not. And my wing is a two. I know we haven't in this whole series. We're not really talking a ton about wings, but my wing is a two. So I can relate to some of these two related things. I do that as well, where I will hint at like the thing I want, and then get mad when the person I'm hinting at doesn't pick up on it. And it's like, okay, if you would just ask them flat out, and my husband will say that, he'll be like, can you just tell me? Like, tell me what it is that you want me to do. Again, I think that's a muscle too that you get better at with time and practice.
No, for sure.
And then the last one I have here is a struggle, which I realize I'm about to use the word struggle into like struggles, is that you can struggle with self-love and feeling like they're worthy of that like help and assistance and prioritization.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot in my life. So
yeah, I feel like one of the best ways, not best ways, but one of the ideas I had in terms of helping with this is, number one, treating yourself like you would treat a friend, right? So like when you find yourself talking to yourself, like, would you say that to someone that you loved? Would you say that to a friend or a spouse or a sibling or a parent and or your daughter, right? And if the answer is no, like, don't say it to yourself. Like it's work on not saying that. And then I think also work on saying positive things to yourself, right? Like affirmations, and it can be awkward at the beginning, but I do think that saying some of those positive things can really help. All right, I have another fun pop-up here, which is just common thoughts of each Enneagram type. So the one for the type 2 says, do they like me? Do you feel like that's common?
Yes, it is. And I always kind of like say that, not like that direct saying, but I will always like think about that, or I voice that to my husband and like with his friends, like, are you sure your friends like me? I'm like, why does that matter? Like, why do you care? I'm like, I just want everyone to like me. Like, I don't want them to like love me or think I'm the coolest, but I want to feel accepted. And so,
yes, it's like, yeah, it kind of goes back to that people pleasing, like you brought up earlier.
Right.
Definitely, I can see that as a struggle for sure. I'm going to flip it back to you a little bit and ask if you have a goal-related question or a goal-related struggle that you feel like comes up a lot for you
Mhm.
that you would want to ask about that other type 2s might also benefit from?
I think my biggest struggle right now with goals is kind of like going back to those like relationships is I'm always making sure everyone else is being taken care of. And so just kind of figuring out different ways or strategies of where I can prioritize myself. I don't know, just really taking care of my needs so I can achieve my goals. Cause I feel like a lot of the time when I do the prep work or I set my goals, I'm setting goals to please others or to help others instead of like being my authentic self and pushing myself like personally. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely
So,
makes sense. It is probably very difficult to just go through the prep work with the mindset of you. Like you said, you really
right.
struggle with that. And I think it's practicing
Mhm.
asking yourself, what do I need right now? And
Right.
it can be, that can be big picture, but it can also be
Mhm.
like hour by hour. Like, okay, in
Yeah.
this hour, what is it that I need? Then doing that for yourself in whatever way you can. Obviously, there's limitations with time and little
Right.
ones and
Yeah.
jobs, but to the extent that you can, what is it that you need? And then I think becoming more aware
Mhm.
of what works and what doesn't work for you, right? Like you talked
Right.
about that hour that you needed to recharge. It's
Mhm.
knowing what works in terms of recharging you and
Right.
then making those things a priority because I
Mhm.
think um it can be also as a type 2 easy to be like, well, other people, this works for somebody else. And I've seen that they recharge this way. So let me do that.
Yeah.
And that might not be what works for you.
Right.
So I think being open to like trying different things and being aware of it. And then, like you
Mhm.
said, scheduling it, like scheduling
Right.
those things that are important to you. And
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be an all or nothing scenario, right? It doesn't
Right.
have to be, I am only helping other people or I'm only taking care of myself. You can
Mhm.
do both.
Right.
You can't do both all the time 24/7, but
Mhm.
you can balance between both. Do you feel like that was helpful at all? Do you feel like that's something you can maybe, I mean, implement is probably not the right word because I do also feel like it's just, like I said, a lot of mindset.
Right. No, that is super helpful, especially talking about like trying different things. And I have been in that spot where I watch other people and like, well, if that works for them, it's going to work for me.
Right.
And it doesn't. And so, and then I get frustrated. But
Right,
yeah.
and then you're like, "Well, I'm just gonna not take care of myself then. I'm gonna keep
Uh-huh.
taking care of other people because that's what I'm good at. I'm not good
Right.
at taking care of me. I'm good at taking care of others."
Yeah.
And you need to prioritize getting good at taking care of you.
Right.
I also think it's maybe setting limits, kind of going back to that always
Mhm.
offering to help, is setting limits on how much you're helping other people or how much you're doing for other
Right.
people. That way you have time for your
Mhm.
especially, you have your students and your husband and your
Mhm.
daughter, and you probably have other family members and friends. And it's
Right.
like, okay, well, where do you fall in that hierarchy of
Yeah.
priority? And
Mhm.
making sure that you're not letting yourself fall too low on the
Right.
list. Awesome. Well, I have one more little pop up here that is just notes for each Enneagram, things that they need to hear. And the one for the type 2 says that your friends love you. I think that sometimes you probably don't hear it as much as
Mhm.
you would necessarily want to hear that
Right.
from the people in your life.
Yes.
And so that's the type 2 little reminder, little note. Awesome. Well, that is all that I have prepared for us to chat about. Do you have any other tips or things that you've figured out that work for you related to goals and using the power sheets and setting goals as a type 2 that others might benefit from?
Really, just the biggest thing that I've been focusing on is making sure I have at least one like mini goal that's focusing on myself for each month. I've also created like different bucket list things that I want to do. And they're like seasonal or like I have a 25 before 25 because I'm turning 25 at the end of the month. And
I
so
love that.
for the last year, I've kind of tried to do these different things. Just trying to focus on those little things to take care of myself and to prioritize myself because I feel like what we said, we can't pour from an empty cup, and I've really have seen that in like my new season of life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the 2 reminder. That's the conclusion is you have to take care of yourself in order to
Yes.
be great at taking care of other people, which I
Hmm.
know is important to the type 2s.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sami, for being here
Mhm.
today. And thank you to everyone who is watching this video. If you wouldn't mind giving it a thumbs up before you head out. And I will see all of you real soon.